in a baggie. Disrespect the corpse? Check. That's just a bizarre day.
Yeah.
Get milk and eggs. Don't forget the eggs.
So after he orally copulated with the heads, he just chucked them into a ravine. Yeah, the girls were reported missing, but because, as Henry said earlier, hitchhiking was such a, people were just very transient then.
Right.
Hitchhiking was a big thing. People would disappear for weeks at a time. So when these girls were reported missing, police, and they didn't find Pesky's head until 9 days later. Anita, they haven't found her remains at all to this day.
Yeah, that's for the best,
God,
Probably,
good
yeah.
Lord. You know what also is, a fleshlight can go in the dishwasher.
Yeah, well...
Nah, you don't need to put it in the dishwasher. No, you just
do. We're not talking about your fleshlight, Marcus. It is so disgusting and disturbing.
Had it for about 5 years now. Still going strong.
Wow. You see, it hasn't lost any of its tautness?
Absolutely not. They're very well made.
Wow.
It is disgusting.
So now we basically see Kemper's style has been completely set. It is just like right out of the gate, which is really interesting because normally killers build to this, but it feels like his rehearsal and his fantasy life was so deep and intense. It's like he knew exactly what he wanted.
It's like Russell Wilson. He won the Super Bowl when he was a rookie. He thought about it. He thought about it. He got there, and he did it.
You know what? It is a lot like that.
It is.
Yeah. And he said he characterized it as making dolls out of people. Didn't reject them. So that was as after he cut off the heads, there was no rejection whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, you got to sell them if you're going to make them.
And although he later recanted and said that this statement was only meant for his insanity defense, on at least 2 occasions, he cannibalized his victims, slicing flesh from their legs and cooking it in a macaroni casserole.
Oh, isn't that kind of a nice place to put human flesh?
The Midwest, Yeah, it's really strange that it's a California casserole because they're not really known for their casserole.
No, that's why everyone loved having Ed over for potlucks because he brought that Wisconsin flair, even though he was from California. How do you know?
Well, he grew up in Montana.
Oh, there we go. That's very
casserole country.
Montana is casserole. Oh, I love casseroles.
But I will say this is that we see a lot with killers too who dabble in cannibalism because I don't view him as a cannibalistic killer. I just think that when your perversions are so intense and you're dealing with a lot of shit, you kind of look at something and be like,
try a little bit. Yeah. Try a little. But he did eat it.
Yeah,
so he's a cannibal.
Yeah, I mean, technically he's a cannibal.
Right, I mean, that's all that we can run on here.
But I wouldn't call him a cannibal. It's
would
you call Michael Jordan a baseball player?
Technically, he was.
Technically, but you don't think of him like that.
Look at percentage of career.
Right.
All right, if the majority of his career was spent looking for people to eat,
he's not going into the Hall of Fame for baseball, but he's going in for basketball. But I'm just saying he did play baseball.
No, I get it. I mean, I think we're in agreement here.
Okay, I'm just gonna say it.
It's on his resume, but it's not the top of the resume.
Okay. I'm just saying you kill and cook someone, put them into a casserole. You're a cannibal.
Yeah, it's under skills. It's like how you would probably list Microsoft Word under your skills,
or
right?
Parasailing. Yeah. I lie. I usually lie on that part.
Dabbler.
Yes.
So all of his victims were chosen randomly on the spot. This wasn't a planned thing where he would plan out victims, and almost all of his murders from here on out would occur after have a knockdown, drag-out fight with his mother. He'd get extremely angry, and he'd say, like, all right, I'm going out. Tonight's the night that I'm going to fucking do it.
He said his rage is what really drove him. And he said he would go on these rages where he was just like, anybody who got in my car was going to die that night.
Yeah, he said when someone put their hand on my car door handle, they were giving me their life. Because after he killed these first 2 girls, he went back to just picking them up and taking them safely to their destination.
Because that's also a distancing thing, too. Because originally he said the behavior was just for him to learn how to talk to girls. So he went back to it and be like, well, I can actually do this again. Now I'll have a bit cooling off period. I can talk to women again and just kind of work it up. And he said that what he would do is they would get in the car and the first thing they'd all talk about is the guy who killed those hitchhikers. And then he would be like, what do you think a guy like that would be like? And they would be like, oh, and they would describe somebody and then he would start to learn how to even deeply mold his persona.
Yeah.
So then that's why he started wearing the blonde wigs and wearing the fake mustache.
Like
fake
Dolly
one in his
Parton.
love her. That had to be a very fun conversation for him to have with those people about the killer. The same reason he talked to the cops about it.
But he
you
said-
get your God complex out because they know less than you do. He was wearing the Google glasses, talking with somebody who had no information at all.
But he definitely said that if they brought up the killer at all, they were definitely safe because he was too embarrassed to then kill them.
Good note. So if you get into a car, just so what about that killer, huh? He's picking up everybody. Just no matter where you go, no matter what you do, you never know when you're with the presence.
Yeah,
of
I mean,
madness.
that's just kind of my practice anyway. Start talking to a stranger, just immediately start jabbering about killers.
Killers.
Yeah,
That's what I always do.
Yeah, that's what I always do. I mean, it's a compulsion rather, and I don't really, and I'm uncomfortable, and I don't know
Right.
what else to talk about. I'm not
because that's all I think about
That's
is
all I
killers
think about, yeah.
and how reality's a
Right.
thin fucking veil and we live in a hologram of a
Yeah.
deeper math, and it's harder to talk about that with someone you just met.
Let's just go around the table real quick. Successful dates in the last month. Successful dates in the last
Night, I
Okay.
had about 3 glasses of scotch and I watched The Wire for 2 hours.
Not a date.
Oh, that's not.
No, another person. Okay.
It's a date with Henry.
I got lucky. I got real lucky.
Okay, no.
So he kept that whole charade of picking up girls and just taking them to their destination for 4 months until September 14th, 1972. Me and Henry were talking about this before, and this is probably the saddest victim.
This really makes
all
me
of
very
these,
sad.
All
they're
these
all very
victims
sad.
are very sad. Like they're all extremely sad because these are among the saddest victims because these are, I mean, not to say that, other victims are worth less or anything because we always talk about the less dead and all this. But these are, just truly innocent victims.
Yeah, I
Like-
mean, at least if Gacy killed you, you got to hang out with an up-and-coming Democratic politician or
Yeah, and
future congressman.
You were drinking and doing drugs.
Right.
It's kind of like the Jason, the Friday the 13th Nightmare on Elm Street type thing of being like, well, maybe you should have been naughty and you wouldn't have been buried in the crawl space. Blame.
Ted Bundy's an adorable kind of a dreamboat guy. Jeffrey Dahmer definitely got you wasted.
Yeah.
Before he tried to drill in your head.
But
this guy's just a
Aiko
monster.
Ku is a very sweet girl that I guess that was his next victim.
Yeah.
That he picked up. It was 15 years old ballet dancer.
Yeah, she was She was going to San Francisco for a ballet class. She missed her bus. Really wanted to make that class, so she made a sign that said San Francisco. So he picks her up, and he doesn't even wait until he gets to a secluded spot. This must have been a horrible fight with his mother, because he pulls out the gun while they're still on the road.
It was probably about how he farted on the no fart couch.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, he pulls out the gun, and he told her that he was planning on killing himself, and he wanted someone to watch it, but he told her that if she screamed or signaled to anyone at all that something was wrong, he would kill her as well. And this is a very interesting thing. At one point, he gets out of the car and acts himself out with the gun inside the car.
oh, that is goofy.
Yeah, he said she could have reached over and grabbed the gun at all, but he said she probably never gave it a thought. She was so terrified because she was a tiny little 15-year-old girl.
Absolutely,
and
he's
he's
a giant monster.
a 6'9", 300-pound monster.
Who is now locked out of the car? Get the gun.
Yeah, no, she lets him back in.
No.
Yeah.
She's
don't
no
like it.
Sigourney Weaver.
Well, you just got to get the gun. Use the gun.
So he drives her out to the mountains, only minutes from the house of one of the case investigators.
That's one of those things about Los Angeles and California in specific. It's like basically it's got tiny little houses surrounded by these mountains. And you basically go up into those mountains and you disappear.
Yeah, yeah, you really do. So he tries to suffocate her first by placing his fingers up her nostrils, but she was able to fight her. She was able to fight him off.
Right.
But eventually, he strangled her with her own scarf. And after she was dead, he laid her on the ground, raped her, and said he achieved orgasm within the body in the trunk, and drives her home, but not before stopping for a beer. He goes inside of the bar. He has a couple of beers. He walks back into the parking lot and opens the trunk, admiring my catch like a fisherman.
This
he
term,
said.
admiring my catch like a fisherman, is another thing of just like what a deeply distanced man he is from himself.
Yeah, disconnected from everything, disconnected from the world at large. So he takes the corpse back to his apartment, cuts off the head and hands, and has sex with the corpse. The next morning, he buries the body in one location, the hands at another, and with her head in a bag, drives to his court-mandated psychiatrist appointment.
So how are things going, Ed? You know?
Things are pretty good. I think I'm getting ahead in my career.
And, well, I mean, I can tell you exactly what that day. The report said from the first he saw 2 psychiatrists that day. The report said, if I were seeing this appointment without having any history available or without getting the history from him, I would think that we're dealing with a very well-adjusted young man who had initiative, intelligence, and who is free of any psychiatric illness.
Bullshit.
It is my opinion that he has made a very excellent response to the years of treatment and rehabilitation, and I would see no psychiatric reason to consider him to be any danger to himself or to any member of society.
It's almost like your medical field is flawed and you shouldn't technically be called a doctor.
And the second appointment actually used the words normal and safe. Both recommended the sealing of his juvenile records as a way to help him become a better citizen. Thus, 8 years after he had killed his grandparents, Kemper gained his complete and total freedom.
If you are a psychiatrist, just at the end of every single paper, just ... also might be a killer.
Might be a
I don't
killer,
know.
I'm
I
not
don't
really
know. Just
sure.
covering my bases. I do
maybe
not know.
not.
And let's play what actually was going on the interior of Edmund Kemper's psychiatrist sessions.
To be walking up the stairs with a camera bag that belonged to a young woman that had her severed head in it. Walking up to my apartment past a happy young couple coming down the stairs who nodded and smiled at me as they went by. Good evening. And they're going out on a date where I'd love to be going. And I'm aware of both of these realities, and the distance between those two is so dramatic, so amazing, so violent, that really, I could feel the wheels squeaking inside. That was really pulling on it. And I imagine at that point some people break. But I didn't literally go insane. I didn't get lost.
And all this time...
Yeah, he was doing totally good.
Totally. I did not go crazy, though. I mean, he could have just had a date with one of these women at the same time. You just don't kill him, and then you might maybe get to ask him out afterwards.
I mean, the thing is that if you don't have much past, like, hitchhiker patter, you're
Right.
not going to do well on dates. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Between pickup and hitchhiker are not, like, we're not talking about, like, great shit. I mean, I don't know. I've never hitchhiked. Maybe you
It's
do get into
difficult.
nice, like, cool, interesting conversations with people.
I think it must
It's
start
very
off a little,
awkward.
yeah, it must be a little bit
Yeah.
awkward up top, but then you gotta find a way. I'm sure that he had a sentence that he said to all of these people in the very beginning.
You got pretty hair. I wonder what it's like laying on the ground, separate from the rest of your body. Well, it's gonna rain here soon. What I would also say about him is that also that statement to me shows how deeply nuts he was.
Oh,
and
it's
I mean, in
insane.
terms of sociopath, because I feel like there's more of a deviousness to it when he talks about how, like, he could have went insane, but he was too strong to go insane. That what he did, he could face it.
Oh,
and
he
deal with
sees
it.
himself as the hero in this story.
Yeah.
Like,
Right,
he
right.
sees himself as a hero because he didn't kill anymore, because he turned himself in. I don't know the reason why, but after he kills Aiko Ku, back in with his mother.
Hey, yeah. When they
Yeah.
say, like, certain songs would, like, come out of one specific guitar, even
Yeah.
if it's an old shitty guitar.
Oh yeah,
You know,
like Trigger, like Willie Nelson's guitar. It's a great guitar, but yeah, it's the guitar that all of his best songs
all
are
his
written
best
on.
songs are written on.
Yeah.
You gotta
Yeah.
get back to the source.
I must say, trigger is a bit of it's a touchy word for Willie to be yelling across a bar. No, give me my trigger. Excuse me? What was that, Willie? What? No, it's the guitar.
It's the one with the rope around its neck.
Well,
strap.
Okay.
Okay, well, how's about Lucille?
I
with
like
B.B.
Lucille. That's a
King?
name
All right.
that can't be,
Yeah,
become
yeah.
a racial slur immediately.
Well, Trigger is more. It's more the name of a horse, but
Yeah, okay,
that's
all
a
right.
different story. So Kemper didn't kill again until he bought a .22 caliber pistol in January, and he said,
I went bananas after I got that 22.
Bananas?
"Bananas!
Wow.
Positively."
Amazing. I love it. He just treats it like a game of Candy Crush. It is. That's insane.
So the same day he bought the gun, on January 8th, 1973, he picked up Cynthia Shaw, who made a habit of hitching rides to Cabrillo College. He brings out the gun again while he's driving. He drives her to a town called Freedom.
Ironic.
Very ironic.
Yikes.
And stopped on a quiet road. He shoots her, dumps her body in the trunk, and took her home. She was a big girl, so Ed struggled to get her upstairs. His mother came home right as Ed was stuffing her into the closet, and he just talked to his mom normally.
Ed, what are you doing? You want to get chicken, Ed? Ed, you want to go get some chicken? What are you doing in there, Ed? You jerking off?
Yeah.
You pervert! You disgusting pervert, Ed!
Now I just can't stop thinking of Throw Mama from the train. The mother from the Goonies, the greatest bad mother of all time.
Mom, I'm having a good time with my friend.
Oh my goodness.
He returned to the room and he carefully removed the bullet from her skull. And he does this again and again. When he shoots the person in the head, he always removes the bullet from the skull first. All business.
Because he's also he's a student.
Yeah.
And he understands, he's been hanging out with cops all the time, and he fancies himself a fucking little genius.
Right.
That he's like, I know how to get rid of all of the evidence.
Yeah. But on the other hand, he does.
Yes.
If he wouldn't have turned himself in, I don't think they would have caught him until he would have gone into a berserker.
Well, we'll talk about it when we get there, but they did not know. They had no clue who the killer was.
Yeah, no idea. So the next day, he brought the corpse back out, had sex with it before dissecting the body in the shower with an axe.
Uh-oh. Shades of an axe murder.
Yeah. Boy, that's so good.
So how big of a gal are we talking here?
I mean, I don't have the exact. I mean,
she was
enough.
just larger than the others.
Yeah,
Okay.
because he usually went for petite women.
Right.
That was his. That was kind of his type. But for some reason, Cynthia Shaw just, she had a twinkle in her eye, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So after he drained the body of all of her blood, he carved it into pieces, bagged up all the pieces, and threw him off the cliff. He had sex with the head for several days before burying it in the yard.
Now, this is a very interesting detail.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
He buried the head right outside of his window in the ground and facing towards the house. And he said that he would have as a sort of boyfriend-girlfriend like relationship with the image of her head, where he would sit in bed and talk to her at night, and they would have like a thing back and forth. And there was also, but then there's another theory that he said that he buried it in the head to mock his mother.
Yeah, because he said that his mother always wanted people to look up to her.
That's funny stuff.
It's fun little puns like that make him the to be.
I love it. It's sort of like a Jack and the Beanstalk, but instead of beans, it's a human head, and instead of a giant, he's finding love, which is kind of nice.
Well, both of those stories come from him. Because as we said at the beginning of the first episode, his story changes depending on who he's talking to.
Yes, and what kind of effect he wants to
Yeah,
get.
what kind of effect he wants. And I think he's also good at reading people. So he can tell.
yeah.
I think he knows what the person wants to hear. He has a narrative. He has a story that he tells each time. It's the same story, just with different details.
He straight up has like Tonight Show bits.
Yeah.
And they talk about it because there's another quote that we have later on. But are we going to play where basically a guy interrupts him in the middle of his story and he's like, wait, you're going to ruin the bit there.
Yeah.
And it's like this. He literally says it because
Yeah.
it's rehearsed patter.
Yeah. It really is. He has a rhythm. He knows exactly. I mean,
He has no idea how to be a real person.
No, he
he's
doesn't.
a total robot. That is like he's a sociopath. Every single thing he does is highly rehearsed and highly put together because he has no real personality. It is of factors that he has like put together. He really was. It's like this is a truly dangerous man.
Yeah.
That needed to be put in
Well,
a
we
fucking
already all
concrete
know
square.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's on his like eighth head now or something.
So less than 2 days later, dismembered
heads.
arms and legs were found on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean.
You
Then
gotta get him into the water, buddy.
he didn't throw it far
Come
enough.
on, get him into the water.
Here's the funny thing is that he was able to make the torso into the water, but the
Sure.
arms and legs didn't make it. I guess he was winded from the torso.
I
Yeah,
guess so.
yeah. Those are, sometimes big guys got that natural hook.
Yeah. So they identified Shaw through lung x-rays. Eventually, the lower torso came in. A surfer also found her left hand, which offered fingerprints, but her right hand never washed up. The media, at this point, in a huge panic because not only, if we remember correctly, Ed Kemper was not the only killer in Santa Cruz, California. This Herbert Mullen, who had racked up 13 in a big spree.
Murder capital of the world.
Yeah, murder capital of the world. One reporter, her name was Marilyn Baker. She was a big tabloid lady. She consistently exaggerated rumors and offered uncorroborated information as fact. She gave daily reports of course, blamed it on satanic rituals.
Well, now it's a great scapegoat.
Yeah,
and
it's
it
a
makes
huge-
great news.
Yeah, and she's saying shit like she suggested that the killer was a lesbian or a transvestite. She started putting in these weird details that all the murders occurred on Mondays after dark and during a full moon.
That's just kind of fun.
Because also what it does, it's
It
fun.
is fun,
It's
yeah.
cool
Super
as shit.
fun, yeah,
But
yeah.
it's also a way to differentiate the crimes. It also makes you, again, it's the idea of putting order to it.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being some random man that they can't find, they're basically saying it's a part of an established magic group. Now that everybody is doing hippy dippy bullshit,
Well,
they think that they can blame it all on that.
they've got to go find that lesbian satanic group that is also transgendered, and then boom, you've got your killer.
Let me
I mean,
in the
everybody
room
knows
with
it.
them. That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I want to be in a lesbian satanic coven.
No.
Ooh,
You
I'll
are
be
not.
I'll be fun for it. I'll be the chef.
Yeah, maybe if you're the chef. But yeah, I think you're supposed to take it a little more seriously.
So many girls going missing. Of course, there were constant warnings for them to not get into cars with strangers, but Ed had a secret weapon. Because the university had decided to institute a bus system that would assist off-campus students getting safely to campus.
And it was a sticker.
Ed had a sticker that his mother had given him, a university-issued sticker, so he could easily get into campus and pick her up from work.
Yeah, because that's what they said, is that
like-
they were like, nobody get into a car that doesn't have a sticker.
Yeah.
And so he had a big sticker that had a letter A on it, which meant he had all access to the entire campus.
Yeah. And he said
It's
even though...
amazing that all it takes is a 10-cent sticker at this time to make everyone just give you full 100% trust.
Yeah. And his next victims, he used that sticker to his advantage. February 5th, 1973, had a violent fight with his mother. Ed called it a real tiff. And drove to campus. Actually drove on campus where his mother worked.
If we're going to have a fart couch and a no fart couch, they need to not be next to each other.
That's true, because when you got a fart, yeah, you just want to do it right there on the couch.
He picks up Rosalind Thorpe, who was just coming out of a lecture, and then picked up 21-year-old Alice Liu. He shot both of them in the head while they were still on university grounds. And in one account, Kemper said that two young men were at a security gate, but when they saw Kemper's university sticker, they just waved him right on through. And in another account, Kemper said that he told the guards that the girls were just drunk, and he was just trying to get them home.
Of course.
Of
It
course.
was 3 p.m. on whatever day it was.
In the front and back seat of your car. Oh, yeah. Nothing suspicious.
I would say both of those women are dead, but you do make a good point. You do
And
have
you
that
got the
sticker.
sticker.
You have the sticker. I got to let you go through.
Yeah, Kemper said it was getting easier to do, and I was getting better at it. He took the bodies home, but as his mother was home, he had to wait until he can take them inside. But what he couldn't wait on was dismembering the bodies. He took his hunting knife, the general, and hacked off both of their heads while they were still in the trunk of his car in full view of neighbors. If someone would have walked by, they would have seen this fucking monster hacking the heads off of two young co-eds.
Legitimately car parked outside of his mother's house on the street.
Right.
It's not even covered. It's nothing. He was getting. He really. Again, shows his ego.
Yeah.
He really is at this point thinks that he can get away with anything.
Yeah. So he placed both of the bodies back in the trunk. He cut off Alice's hands, then dumped the bodies and heads in two separate places where they were found 9 days later. These two girls would be Ed's last co-ed.
I mean, the one thing that you have to remember, like when smoking weed in public, just do it. Pretend like you're like Johnny Depp, to use him as a reference again in the movie Blow. The most important thing to do when carrying whatever pounds of cocaine through an airport is to pretend like you're not doing it. If you're cutting off a person's head, Just pretend like you're changing a tire.
Or like Johnny Depp and Willy Wonka in the Chocolate Factory, where you just kind of forget that you're in a movie.
He stops acting?
Yeah.
Oh, I love
Yeah,
the real
yeah.
Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, and your natural pedophilic impulses just kind of come out. Just kind of
be you.
on screen.
I love that.
So yes, these were his last two victims. So now we're looking
Well,
at
last two co-ed victims.
co-ed victims.
Right.
We're looking at a man who's like built all the way up to this sort of fever pitch in his own head, and he was saying he was really trying very hard to quell it for a while.
Did he really try, though?
More
Yeah.
than not, I feel like
Yeah, actually,
more
I
than
think he
not
did.
doing it all together. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, he did make a conscious effort to not do it. And the fact that he turned himself in does tell you that he was actually trying to do it. But pretty soon after he killed these two girls, officer, he was checking through gun licenses.
And the way they found this too is very interesting.
Yeah.
Is that so his record was expunged for killing his grandparents, and so they were going through driver's licenses because they basically there's like a random sweep where they go through a bunch of gun license things like forms and shit and make sure everything's up to date and everything's up to par, and they were going through and they're like, oh, Eddie Kemper, oh yeah, that big fucking the bubble butt who was hanging out and being annoying.
I remember him. Yeah.
I was like, yeah, it says here, it's like, what is this thing? And they noticed that back in the day, instead of issuing a new card, they literally would just cross out your record on the card.
They'd black it out, kind of like redacted on classified.
But it was
government
like with a
forms.
marker.
Yeah.
And so he's like, what does it say underneath this thing? And he looks at it, and basically he sees through the marker that he was put into an insane asylum for killing his grandparents. And he's just like,
Jesus.
you guys know that Eddie Kemper murdered somebody? And they're like, no. And he's like, yeah, he killed his fucking grandparents. And they're like, what gun does he have? And he's like, he's got a massive 45.
Yeah.
And so they're like,
Right.
we got to go get him. And they all knew him. And so they're like, well, this guy's 6'9" and 300 pounds. Who wants to go get the gun from him?
Right, and you know if he throws you over the top rope, you're out. So you can't come back into the investigation.
Yeah.
So-
So they sent the rookie.
They sent a guy, they literally drew straws, and the
Right.
rookie lost. And the rookie is literally this tiny guy. When I saw an interview with him, and he's just like, so I just, I knew that, so it was up to me. Go roll up Eddie. So I rolled on over to the car, and they were saying they have a hard time finding the address. And they went over to basically, he went around looking. It was like one of those things where it was like 609A, 609B. There was a bunch of different houses all in a cul-de-sac, and he couldn't see anybody, and he was looking around, and finally he said he saw a pair of feet hanging out of the car, and he walks up to him and he's like, excuse me, sir, is that you? Can you point me towards a 609A? And he was like, and then I watched Ed Kemper get out and get out and get out of it's just all of his body come and pour out of this car, and him standing all the way up, and he was like, can I get your gun back?
This guy approaches Kemper like Wayne, or like Garth did in Wayne's World when he confronted the bully with the.
Excuse me.
Excuse me. I'd like to get by now.
But he said then he went into so then Eddie then in his mind starts going paranoid. He's like, what gun do they want?
Yeah.
Because he's like, I got a 45 in my house, but I also have a shit ton of other fucking illegal guns in my
And
house.
I've also got that 22 that I've been killing all these girls with.
Inside of my car.
Yeah.
And so finally when he said the 45, he's like, oh, yeah. I'll give it to you. Yeah.
God, that's got to be just such a strange thought process of, hoping they don't know the right gun.
Yeah, it really is. So there was also a young blonde girl there with
Yes.
Ed, and if the cop hadn't come, he would have killed that girl.
Yeah.
So he
Right.
just let the girl go. And 2 months after he killed those two girls, I'd say he started to play what I could only describe as Russian roulette with other people's lives. Picking up girls just to test himself, just to see if he could pick girls up and not kill them.
Right.
But here's like some ridiculous irony. There was two girls that he picked up.
He looked exactly the same as
Yes.
Marianne, as the first two
Yes,
victims.
the first two. They wanted him to take them the wrong way to their destination, which would have taken them straight to the site of the first two murders. But Ed knew the right way. He's like, no, you don't go this way. We have to go this way. And that's the amazing irony, is that he scared those two girls more than he scared any of his victims.
Absolutely, because they were freaking out because he was just like, no, let me take you the right way. Let me take you the right way.
Yeah.
And he did it, and then he dropped him off. But it was this point. So that mounting pressure from inside his own brain to kill.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, with the cops buzzing him for that gun,
Yeah.
has started firing up his paranoia.
He thought that the cops were playing a cat and mouse game with him. He
yeah,
thought
they were just stupid.
Yeah, the incidents. So after that, he spends an entire week thinking about, okay, it's time.
I am going to go to the delta of my crimes, and it's time to kill mommy.
And he would go through it that Sunday, Easter weekend. Yeah. So
I think it was a part of him that thought that maybe if I kill her, she'll come right back, huh?
Yeah, you never know who's going to rise on Easter.
So he walks into her room on Saturday night while she's reading. She slams her book shut, and she said,
Oh my God, now I suppose you want to stay up all night and talk.
I mean, she was a cold woman.
She was a
in her
very
own
cold woman.
way.
Because that was the thing, is that he was such a fucking huge, dorky fucking mama's boy that he would go and sit on the corner of her bed every night and like tell him about his problems and his feelings, and she hated him for it.
yeah.
He was just a gigantic nuisance.
Yeah.
Right.
And he said you just left the room and returned 4 hours later with a claw hammer.
And it was also very interesting in in one of his first interviews, he breaks into tears talking about this because he says he was psyching himself up all night. And you see, because every other victim he talks about with sort of a smugness, sort of like a thing above him.
I pulled one over on them.
Yeah,
Right.
or they deserved it, blah blah blah, and then that thing we said, it's not that I did a horrible thing, but it's a horrible thing happened to them.
Yeah.
Right, and so he was, of course, very conflicted about killing his mother, but he knew he had to do it. He
That's
knew
when
that
you
this is-
stare into the window and you look at your own reflection and you're like Annette Bening in American Beauty and you're like, I will sell this house tonight. I will murder my mother today. I will do it.
So he bashes her head in as she slept. He rolls her over, slits her throat, and he said that he was shocked at how easy it was to kill her, that she died just as easily as all the rest of them.
Oh, an elderly sleeping woman? That wasn't the most difficult kill you've
to
ever
be honest,
had?
this I imagine he thought she was like fucking King Koopa, was going to come back
right.
black and white, like flashing red.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder what he thought was going to happen when he did like stab it. Like light was going to come from her or something.
don't
Like
know.
she was going to turn into a stronger demon force, like in.
like at the end of Ocarina of Time when you think you've beaten Ganondorf, and then the tower blows up, and then you got to deal with super big Ganondorf.
Ganondorf, more like Momendorf.
Pretty much. Yeah, Dead Alive, I was thinking as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So he then decided that, quote, what's good enough for my victims was good enough for my mother.
Oh, very nice of
Yeah.
you, Ed.
It wasn't very nice.
No.
No. He cuts off her head, has sex with her corpse. He goes a little bit further. He removes her vocal cords and throws them in the garbage disposal.
But they won't grind up because
Yeah.
they're too thick.
Yeah, they keep popping back out of the garbage disposal into his face.
Yeah, and it's like it seemed appropriate as much as she bitched and screamed and yelled at me so much over the years. Even when she was dead, she was still bitching at me. I couldn't get her to shut up.
Yep.
Yeah, I wonder if I wonder if his mother's head, if he was just like, I think this is a career-defining moment. You know what? I think this is how people are going to define my entire life.
This is my Saving Private Ryan.
This is great.
So he spends the next few hours yelling and screaming at his mother's head. He places the head up on the mantle, yells and screams at the head, and then just starts throwing darts at her face.
He
That
was
is fun.
upset.
He was upset.
He was upset. I know. I blow off steam. I've yelled at the coffee maker.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
in these last couple of months, I've yelled at some stuff in my house that doesn't need to be yelled at. I held my TV like I was a woman once.
No, we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that. This is being recorded, Henry.
So he felt sick. He goes out for a drive. He sees an acquaintance who owes him $10, and
Jesus.
they went out for a drive in his friend's car, and he's still got the urge to kill. Like, he is
Right.
fucking keyed up.
He said his buddy gave him the $10 and it saved his friend's fucking life.
Oh, that's nice.
God damn.
So if you owe a buddy a debt, just
up
pay
right
it
now.
pay up right